Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Shenanigans with Shreya. Today's episode is a bit of a different one. The world and the headlines that we're constantly seeing, they're just so heavy. And, you open your phone and it's just this constant stream of this has attacked this place and missiles and nuclear weapons and this narrative of it's us versus them. And it often feels like we're stuck in a loop. And, in an age where we have so much technology to do so much good, we're still stuck in what seems like the olden ages. We're using violent solutions, which is a very old thing to be doing for modern age problems. So, why is that so? I was really curious as to why in 2026 we still hear news of war and why is that still happening in the world. So, today we are going to be looking at the psychology of war and we'll be talking about the evolutionary glitch that happens in our brain, the narcissism of small differences, and most importantly, why the world isn't all doom and gloom. And there are literal biological steps that we can take to change the frequency. So, to understand war, we have to understand a little bit about the amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain. For 99% of human history, resources were scarce. You were in tribes, and if you encountered someone from a different tribe, they weren't your friend, they were a threat to your food, your water, your family, the access to resources that you had. So in our brain, we have this circuit, which I'm going to be calling the in-group, out-group bias. When you identify with a group, whether it's a country, a football team, whatever fandom it is, your brain releases oxytocin, which is essentially a cuddle hormone. But there is a dark side to this, that it doesn't just make you love your own people, it actually increases the way that you're going to be aggressive to the out-group, the people that are not inside that group. So it is a survival mechanism, and your brain is like physically wired to deprioritize the feelings of anyone that's outside your circle, because we've been wired to protect the people that are inside our circle. So in a way, war is essentially this biological survival tactic that's scaled up to this massive global level by people who know exactly how to pull those neural triggers and to, justify these feelings of quote unquote nationalism. Again, as if we're not on the same planet and as if these borders are not imaginary, invisible lines. But anyways, when people end up supporting something like conflict, it's a process called moral disengagement. Our brains are equipped with mirror neurons. So those are the cells that allow for empathy. So, if I see you cry, my mirror neurons are going to fire and I'm going to start feeling that sadness. In war, leaders use specific language to mute the mirror neurons. They start using words like pests and threats instead of using words like friends, children, students, neighbors. And when we stop seeing individuals for who they are and start seeing them as a category, our prefrontal cortex, which is the logic center, can get swayed. It can go offline and we stop thinking about the human cost because our brain has been tricked into thinking that the other person, the other thing isn't actually human. So this is why it's so important to diversify your social feed, because it's a neurological necessity to keep your empathy circuits from being muted. You cannot be swayed, and you not be swayed by people trying to prove otherwise. Now, there is a concept by Freud called the narcissism of small differences. And it's this idea that the more the two groups are similar, the more they will obsess over the little things that will make them different. So in 2026, our social media algorithms are kind of feeding into this narcissism. So this keeps our nervous system in a state of high alert. So when you are in fight or flight mode, you can't access high-level compassion because you're stuck in this limbic system. We are being hacked into a state of constant war readiness by the very devices in our pocket. Like our phones and our access to media in a way is priming our brains to be ready for this, war zone. So where is the hope in all this? Here's the truth. Violence is actually on a long-term decline. We just see it more because we have 24/7 news cycles, and we are the first generation to have to manage the global trauma and weight of the world from our homes. Our grandparents' generation didn't know what was happening in that much detail, weren't witnessing it live. What can you do on an individualistic level? So number one would be to expand your group. So the most rebellious thing that you can do is to find human connection that, your algorithm is telling you to hate, trying to convince you that people are different. By connecting more with other groups of people, it physically rewires your oxytocin circuits and it includes them in your in-group. Number two, regulate your nervous system. So you cannot be a force for peace if you are in a state of constant digital panic. It is so important to log off, literally touch grass, and remind your brain that you are safe so your prefrontal cortex can come back online. Peace isn't just this, drawn out treaty that's signed by politicians, and politicians aren't the only people in the world who can control peace. It's how you treat the person on the bus, the classmate with the wrong opinion, the waiter. Those micro interactions are the little things that will add up and eventually change the world. So the world isn't all doom and gloom. It is a work in progress. And your brain, with all its messy evolution, is the most powerful tool for compassion that's ever been created. So it's so important to choose that update and to choose wisely. Anyways, guys, that is all for today's episode. I hope you guys are doing well and taking care of yourselves. And yeah, focus on what you can control. We can make a difference. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.